I never thought silence could make so much noise until the morning my daughter left for her trip. The house felt hollow, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to break. She had hugged me quickly, her arms loose, her eyes already somewhere else. She said it was just for a few days. She said she deserved a break. She did not say she had taken my pension money, but I knew. Mothers always know. That pension was not just money. It was every year I woke up before sunrise, every ache in my knees, every meal I skipped so my children could eat better. It was my safety, my dignity, my proof that I still mattered in this world. I stood in the doorway and watched her car disappear down the street. The sound of the engine faded, but the weight in my chest stayed. I told myself not to cry. I told myself she would bring something back for me. Maybe a scarf, maybe a story, maybe love. I told myself many lies because the truth hurt too much. The first day passed slowly. I cleaned the house, though it was already clean. I folded towels that did not need folding. I rearranged photographs just to touch memories that still smiled at me. At night, I sat on the edge of my bed, listening to the old clock tick, each second reminding me that time moves on even when love stays behind. On the second day, my stomach growled in the afternoon. I laughed softly at myself. Old age makes you forget meals, or maybe I was just trying not to think. I walked to the kitchen. The fridge hummed softly like it was tired too. I opened it. There was almost nothing inside. A half-empty bottle of water, an old lemon dried at the edges, a small container with a spoon scraped at the bottom. That was all. I stood there staring as if something might magically appear, as if food might grow out of shame. I closed the door slowly, leaned my forehead against the cool surface, and whispered that it was okay, that I could manage, that I always had. But my hands were shaking, not from hunger, from realization. She had not just taken my money, she had taken my comfort, my food, my sense of being cared for. I remembered the day she was born, how I did not eat for 2 days because I wanted her strong. I remembered walking miles just to buy her favorite bread. I remembered counting coins late at night, making sure she never knew we were poor. And now, here I was, counting the hours until sleep so I would not feel hungry. On the third day, my neighbor knocked. She asked if everything was fine. She said she hadn't seen me in 2 days. I smiled. I always smile. I said I was resting. When she left, I sat back down and looked at my phone. No messages, no calls, just photos she had posted. Blue water, bright drinks, a wide smile that did not include me. I did not feel anger. Anger needs energy. I felt something heavier, something quieter. That night, I went to bed early. Hunger makes you tired in a way sleep cannot fix. I dreamed of a table full of food and a little girl calling me mama. When I woke up, my chest hurt. I sat up slowly. The room spun for a moment. I held the bed until it stopped. I went to the kitchen again, opened the fridge again. Still empty, still silent. I did not cry. Tears would have meant hope, and hope felt dangerous. I made tea with hot water and pretended it was soup. I drank it slowly, as if warmth alone could fill a lifetime. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. I was not expecting anyone. When I opened the door, my daughter stood there, her face glowing from sun and laughter, a suitcase behind her. She talked quickly about the trip, about the hotel, about how tired she was. Then she walked past me, straight to the kitchen. I heard the fridge open. And then she screamed. She screamed my name the way she used to when she was little and afraid. A sharp, broken sound that cut through the house. I moved slowly, my legs heavy as if the floor was holding me back. When I reached the kitchen, she was standing frozen, staring into the fridge. Her hand was still on the door, her smile gone, her face pale. "What is this?" she whispered. "Why is there nothing here? Where is the food?" I looked at her, and for a moment I saw the child she once was, the one who cried when she dropped her ice cream, the one who clung to my dress when thunder shook the sky. But that moment passed quickly, replaced by a woman who had learned to take without asking. I said nothing. Silence had become my language. She turned to me, anger and confusion mixing in her eyes. "Did you not go shopping? Why did you not tell me?" "Tell you what?" I asked softly. "That I was hungry? That I was scared? That I counted coins again like I did 20 years ago?" Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked around the kitchen as if the answers might be hiding behind the cabinets. Then she laughed nervously. "You should have told me," she said. "I would have sent money." "Sent money?" The word echoed inside me. I thought of the pension, the envelope I kept hidden under my clothes, the one I touched when I felt unsure of the future, the one that was gone. I asked her quietly, "Where is my pension?" She stiffened. "Just for the trip," she said quickly. "I was going to return it. I needed a break." "A break? From what?" I wanted to ask. "From being loved? From remembering you had a mother?" My chest tightened. I held the counter to stay standing. She noticed then, really noticed. Her eyes dropped to my hands, thin, shaking, veins visible like fragile threads. "Mama," she said softly, "when was the last time you ate?" I shrugged. Time feels different when you are alone. She rushed toward me then, wrapping her arms around my shoulders. I did not hug back, not because I did not love her, but because something inside me had grown tired. She cried, her tears warm on my neck. "I am sorry," she kept saying. "I did not think. I thought you had savings." Savings? As if love could be stored forever without being refilled. I guided her gently away, sat her down at the table. She looked small there, suddenly unsure. I told her about the nights I drank hot water, about pretending warmth was enough, about sleeping early so hunger would not speak too loudly. She covered her face, her shoulders shook. I watched quietly. I was not angry. Anger burns fast and leaves ashes. I felt older than I had ever felt. She promised to replace the money, to buy groceries, to never do it again. I nodded, because mothers nod even when trust has cracked. That evening, she cooked. The smell filled the house, rich and comforting. She placed a plate in front of me carefully, like an offering. I ate slowly, not because I was full, but because each bite carried memory. I remembered feeding her with a spoon, blowing on food so it would not burn her, smiling even when I was exhausted. She watched me eat, her eyes never leaving my face. That night, as I lay in bed, I listened to the fridge humming again, full this time, heavy with food. But something else was empty. I realized then, food can return, money can return, but the moment a child forgets their parent is fragile. That moment never fully heals. And in the dark, with a full stomach and a heavy heart, I wondered if she would ever open that fridge again and remember what it truly meant to scream. The next morning felt heavier than the days before, not because of hunger, but because something had been said without words, something that could not be folded away like blankets or washed clean like dishes. I woke before dawn the way I always did. Habit does not age, even when bodies do. I lay there, listening to her breathing from the next room, slow, deep, careless. The sound of someone who still believed the world would catch them if they fell. I wondered when I stopped sleeping like that. In the kitchen, the fridge was full. Vegetables stacked neatly, milk cold and fresh, leftovers wrapped carefully. It looked like a promise, one that had arrived too late. I made tea and sat by the window, watching the street wake up, people rushing to lives that still needed them. I asked myself when my life stopped being needed and started being convenient. She came in later, hair messy, eyes soft. She smiled at me like she used to when she wanted forgiveness. The smile that said, "Remember, I am still your child." "Mama," she said, "let me take you shopping today. We will fix everything." Fix. Such a hopeful word. I nodded because saying no felt like starting a war I was too tired to fight. Outside, the sun was bright, too bright for how quiet I felt inside. In the car, she talked endlessly about plans, about changes, about how she would take better care of me. I watched her hands on the steering wheel, strong, confident, the same hands I once guided across paper to help her write her name. At the store, she filled the cart quickly, too quickly, as if speed could erase guilt. She chose expensive things, things I never bought for myself. She kept asking, "Is this okay? Do you want more?" I said yes, even when I meant no. Old habits again. At the counter, she paid. I noticed her jaw tighten when the total appeared, just for a second, enough for me to see. On the way home, she was quieter. I knew that silence too. It sounded like regret mixed with calculation. That afternoon, she sat with me, pulled out envelopes, receipts. She placed money on the table. "Here, Mama, all of it, I promise." I looked at the notes, clean, new, unworn. I did not touch them right away. I told her something I had never said, not even to myself. I told her that when she took my pension, she did not just take money, she took my sense of safety, the belief that at the end of my life, I would still be protected by the child I raised. Her eyes filled, but I kept going. I told her about the fear of getting sick with no one knowing, about lying awake wondering if dying quietly would be easier than being a burden, about how invisible old age can feel. She reached for my hand. This time, I let her. She said she was scared too, scared of money, of the future, of becoming like me. That hurt more than anything. I squeezed her fingers gently and told her becoming like me meant surviving, loving, sacrificing, and still standing. That evening, she stayed home. No phone, no friends, just us. We cooked together, slowly, side by side. For the first time in years, she asked me about my youth, about my dreams, about what I wanted before life chose for me. I answered honestly, not softly, not carefully. And as the night settled, I realized something. She asked me about love, not the kind you see in movies, but the kind that leaves marks on your soul, the kind that makes you choose again and again, even when your heart is tired. I told her about the man I once loved, how he left, how I stayed, how I learned to fold sadness into quiet corners of the house, and how I waited for her arrival to fill those corners with light again. She listened, her eyes wide, her fingers tracing the edge of the table, as if understanding that my story was part of her too. I could see the questions forming about herself, about the choices she would make, about the moments she might steal without thinking. We spoke until the moon rose, soft light spilling through the curtains, turning the kitchen into a sacred space filled with the smell of spices and warm bread, filled with our shared breaths, our shared memories, our shared silence. When it was time to sleep, I told her to go to her room. She hesitated, looking at me like a child who did not want the day to end. I smiled, because even in anger, even in mistakes, even in silence, love can be seen. The next morning she woke first, came to the kitchen, brought me tea, sat down across from me. Did not speak, just handed me the cup. I felt her eyes on me, waiting for me to speak first. I told her about patience, about forgiveness, about how sometimes survival is the quietest act of courage. She nodded because she understood, even without fully knowing. That day, we cleaned the house together, slowly moving from room to room, picking up what had been left, both physically and emotionally. I realized that she was learning, not just to give, but to notice, to remember, to honor. By afternoon, she suggested we visit the market. We walked hand in hand. I felt the weight of her hand, firm and warm, but gentle enough to remind me I was still needed. I guided her. She guided me, a dance we had never practiced but always knew. At the market, she bought small things for herself, but kept asking my opinion, waiting for me to choose. Not in control, but in partnership. And in that act, I felt my heart stretch, not from joy alone, but from recognition. Recognition that she could see me, even after my fears, even after my silence, even after the fridge. Returning home, she insisted on helping cook again. We laughed as we made mistakes, dropped flour on the floor, burnt the edges of bread, spilled water over the counter. But it did not matter, because these were the moments, the unspoken apologies, the rebuilding of trust, the stitching together of hearts. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about how fragile relationships are, how easily they can break, but also how resilient they are if one dares to care, if one dares to see, if one dares to stay. And I knew that the rest of my life would be about teaching her and also learning from her, about love, about mistakes, about the quiet strength of asking for forgiveness, and about the courage to give it. The house was quiet that night, but it no longer felt hollow. It felt alive, with breaths, with memories, with hope, and with the promise that even when mistakes are made, even when fridges are empty, even when hearts are heavy, there is still a way to come back, together. The morning came differently this time. Not heavy, not hollow, but quiet and patient. I woke slowly, feeling the weight of yesterday, yet lighter. The house smelled of cooked bread and fresh tea, of laughter that had returned softly, of memories that no longer hurt as sharply. She came into the kitchen carrying a small bag, eyes bright, smile cautious but hopeful. I watched her carefully, wondering if this was the moment things could truly change, if the fridge could become more than a place of absence, if our hearts could be repaired. "Mama," she said softly, "I have something for you." I set the table slowly, my hands steady. Her bag opened. Inside were fruits, vegetables, bread, small gifts, carefully chosen, thoughtfully wrapped, and a note. I did not read it immediately. I just watched her, standing there, waiting, her chest rising and falling, her eyes reflecting something I had almost forgotten: pride, love, regret, hope, all at once. I finally took the note, read it slowly, every word deliberate, every line heavy with apology and promise. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I held them back, because this was not a moment for crying. It was a moment for recognition, for seeing each other clearly, for understanding the cost of our choices. We unpacked together, worked side by side, the kitchen alive again, not just with food, but with presence, with intention, with care. Then she asked if I wanted to go out. I hesitated. Walking outside had become a small adventure in itself, the streets familiar yet foreign, the air heavy with memories of the past, of children running, of years gone, of sacrifices unnoticed. But I nodded. and we went, side by side. She did not rush, she did not speak too much, she just walked. And I noticed her, truly noticed her. And she noticed me, truly. At the park, she paused, looked at the swings, at the children laughing, at the sunlight catching leaves in golden hues. She held my hand tightly and said, "I was wrong. I did not see you. I did not think. I was selfish." I wanted to tell her, "You have always been my child, and mistakes do not erase love." But the words stayed inside, because sometimes silence speaks louder than anything else. We sat on a bench, watching the world move, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. Not because money returned, not because the fridge was full, but because my daughter had seen me, really seen me, and she had chosen to stay. The evening came, we returned home, she cooked again. This time I helped, hands touching, accidentally, laughing, remembering, forgiving. I realized that the past could not be undone, but the present could be nurtured, and the future could be shaped with care, with attention, with love. That night we sat at the table, eating quietly, the lights soft, the house warm. She reached across, touched my hand, and I held hers, firm, reassured, connected. I whispered, "Thank you, not for the money, not for the food, but for seeing me, for returning, for choosing love, for being my daughter." She smiled, and I saw it, the understanding, the bond, the strength of a relationship tested, broken, and rebuilt, not perfectly, not easily, but truly. The fridge hummed softly in the background, full this time, but it was no longer a symbol of absence. It was a reminder of care, of attention, of the courage to acknowledge mistakes and the courage to repair them. I went to bed that night feeling older, wiser, grateful for the day, for my daughter, for the quiet victories, for the moments that do not make the news, but make life worth living. And as sleep took me, I knew this story would stay with me, not just as a memory of hunger, not just as a lesson in selfishness, but as proof that love endures, even through mistakes, even through silence, even when fridges are empty, even when hearts feel abandoned. Because love is patient, love is seeing, love is returning, and sometimes love is just showing up and staying. And in that quiet night, with my daughter beside me, the house finally felt like home again, filled with warmth, filled with understanding, filled with the promise that even after loss, even after mistakes, even after screams, there is always a way back, together. The night deepened quietly around the house. The lamps cast gentle shadows across the walls. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping the last of my tea, feeling the warmth linger in my hands. She moved softly beside me, clearing plates, folding napkins, every motion deliberate, every gesture a small apology, every breath a promise. I watched her, my daughter, the child who once took my pension without thought, now a woman who returned, who had seen me, who had understood, who had chosen to stay. We did not speak much. Words were not needed. The silence between us was heavy with understanding. It carried the weight of years, the mistakes, the absence, the hunger, and the love that never left. I remembered the mornings when she was small, how I woke before dawn, how I counted coins quietly, how I prayed she would never feel the weight of our poverty, how every small sacrifice was a testament of love. And now I saw that she understood, not fully perhaps, not perfectly, but enough to reach across the distance between us, enough to rebuild what had been broken, enough to make me feel seen and safe and loved. The fridge hummed quietly in the background, full, warm, a symbol of care, not of loss, not of absence, but of presence, of return, of repair. I reached for her hand. She held it without hesitation. We sat together, two hearts scarred yet steadfast, two lives intertwined by years of love and mistakes, by moments of hunger and abundance, by silence and words unspoken. And in that quiet night, I realized that motherhood and childhood are never perfect. They are not about fairness or mistakes or stolen money. They are about returning, about seeing, about staying, about forgiveness, about love enduring even when it hurts, even when it trembles, even when it screams. I whispered softly, "Thank you." Not for the money, not for the food, but for returning, for seeing me, for loving me enough to come back. She smiled. Her eyes glistened, and in that smile, I felt the weight of years lift slightly. The house no longer felt hollow, the fridge no longer a reminder of absence, the silence no longer lonely. I knew then that the story of our lives would continue, not without mistakes, not without fear, but with care, with understanding, with the quiet courage to stay together, even when hearts were heavy, even when love was tested, even when life demanded too much. And as I finally lay down to sleep, I felt a peace I had not known in years. The warmth of love returned, not just from her, but from the understanding that even in absence, even in mistakes, even in hunger, love could find its way back home. Always.
If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Every single subscription motivates me to bring you even more exciting and dramatic HOA stories. And don't forget to tap the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. I'll see you in the next story, where justice gets even more satisfying.